Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of We Watch Shudder, and thank you for your patience as we're coming in a day later than expected on this one. My name is JD, and who's here with me?
It's Michelle.
It is Michelle. Guys, I just want to tell you, without getting too over-sherry with a bunch of strangers listening to a horror movie podcast, the last 24 hours for JD been a real pile of shit. So if I seem a little out of sorts during this episode, I apologize. It's been a rough day. I haven't gotten any sleep in like a day and a half. I'm very tired, but we're going to try real hard to get through with this one. How's your day been, Michelle?
It has been uneventful, but sometimes the real
I'm so
horror
jealous.
is life.
Yeah. You guys ever have one of those days where no one huge bad thing happens, but it just seems like every 3 seconds there's some new thing just piling on top of another thing? That's been my last 26, 28 hours. JD is very ready to go to bed and hopefully sleep all weekend long.
Did you check to make sure that you are recording? Because I don't want that to be another bad thing that's going on. I checked like 5 times.
Yeah, I am for sure recording. I'm watching it on the screen in front of me as we speak.
I am making sure because I'm like, if things could go wrong, like what if my microphone just lights on fire?
Here's big secret that I should probably let Michelle in on. We actually do a video conference call when we do these recordings, and I almost never watch that video because it's super weird to me. 90% of the time when we're recording, I'm just sitting here staring at a waveform.
That's fair. Most of the time, I kind of stare off into the distance, even though I have your face in the corner of my eye.
Okay, now I'm looking at the video conference.
Well, I just have to check if there's like animals in the background occasionally, because sometimes there could be for either of us.
Always.
So,
well, now that we've completely run off everybody, what we do here at We Watch Shudder is we like to start every episode lately by filling everyone's ears with inane babble that have nothing to do with the subject at hand to make sure you really want to stick around for the good stuff. And what we do here is we watch original and exclusive new releases from Shudder. If you're not familiar with Shudder, it's basically like Netflix for horror movies and other weird type movies that get lumped into horror because nobody knows where else to put them. And we love it. And we watch their releases and we're talking about them. Which one are we talking about today, Michelle?
Saloum.
Saloum. It's a movie from Senegal. A Senegalese movie.
Senegal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to start out by saying I'm pretty sure other than I know I've seen some films from South Africa. For example, even Good Madam that we talked about earlier this year. I can't say for certain, but this might be the first large-scale African film I've ever seen that wasn't from South Africa.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very interesting
thing. African films in general.
I thought that
at least not in the horror realm. Yeah.
So I really didn't know what to expect going in. I honestly didn't know if I was going to have to maybe be a little forgiving of some budgetary constraints or something. But anyway, before we get too deep into it, Michelle, who's going to read the description today? I happened to take a look at it, and god damn, it's a novel again. Do you want me to do it?
I will do it because I know you're having a bad day, and this can be one of the highlights that you don't have to read the description.
Oh, God, it's a novel. Who writes these things?
Me. It's me. I go in there, and I write them every day. Okay, so Saloum, shot down after fleeing a coup and extracting a drug lord from Guinea-Bissau? Guinea-Bissau. The legendary mercenaries known as the Bangui?
I believe it's Bangui.
Bangui. Okay, I did not look up any pronunciations.
I mean, don't quote me on this. Guys, if we pronounce a bunch of stuff wrong in this film, please forgive us for being poorly educated American white folks.
Yeah, and I tried to catch in the movie. Okay, I'm just going to go through the rest of this paragraph. There might be mispronunciations. I'm doing my best by reading it and knowing that a lot of this is French, and French is a very difficult language for me. I love it. Okay, so the legendary mercenaries known as the Bangui hyenas must stash their stolen gold bounty, lay low long enough to repair and refuel their plane, and escape back to Dakar, Senegal. When they take refuge at a holiday camp in the coastal region of Saloum, they do their best to blend in with their fellow guests, but one hyena is hiding a dark secret. He has brought them there for a reason, and once his past catches up to him, his decisions have a devastating have devastating consequences, threatening to unleash hell on them all. A Shudder original.
A Shudder original.
JD, do you want to hit us with your spoiler-free thoughts? You kind of start going into them.
Before we started recording, one of the last things Michelle said to me is, well, considering how the rest of your day went, I hope you at least enjoyed this movie. And here's what I can tell you. Let's just cut right to the chase. This movie fucking rules. 4.5 skulls.
Good. Okay. Awesome.
This movie was quite possibly the only bright spot in the last 27 hours of my life. 4.5 skulls. I'll give you details later.
I am very happy for you, and I feel like we have rambled enough, and I will agree, but I will go just slightly lower. I will go 4.25.
Oh, right on.
It's excellent. I don't think you really need to know a lot. That description is very hefty.
Yeah, the description basically tells you everything you need to know going in. Yep.
Yeah, but this is, even if we had thought, well, maybe we'll have to forgive some things because it's going to be a smaller budget. No, go into this with knowing that there's no forgiving anything. It doesn't need it. It's a great movie. Average of 4.375 out of 5 skulls.
It's a slick, 100% professional, awesome movie. Well produced, excellent. We'll talk about all the details in the spoiler section. But if you guys want to see a kick-ass action thriller movie with some pretty serious horror elements blended in, go watch this movie before you listen to our spoiler section. I want to recommend this movie. Maybe if you've never actually gone and watched one before listening through the spoilers, do it with this one. This is a movie that you should go see.
Yeah. Go do it.
All right. So but make sure you come back and listen to the rest of the episode.
Oh, yeah, we always forget. Oh, damn it. We forgot to say it before they're gone.
No, because I haven't told them to hit the pause button yet. So we're okay.
Okay, thank God. Thank God. Oh, I'm so glad that they heard this part.
Yeah. Go watch Saloum. If you've already seen it, you don't need to do a thing. But if you haven't and you're going to go watch it, hit the pause button right now. Michelle, tell us about what you loved about this movie.
Okay, so the little bit that I had seen about this was that it was a Western supernatural movie, was the description that everybody kept saying, that it was a Western. I hate Westerns, with the exception of like American Tail, Fievel Goes West, and Wild Wild West, and Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. I hate Westerns. Those are my exceptions. So I was excited to see something new, because I don't think a Western supernatural is a very common hybrid you see, but I was not feeling super confident about the Western part. And I will also say that I don't hate action movies, but generally if there's a scene where there were a bunch of unnamed bad guys standing on the ground shooting at a plane with handguns, that's not going to be the type of movie that I'm into. It's usually just like a bunch of gunfights. Don't love it. So I started out very low expectations with this one, but excited to see something new. I was immediately drawn in by these characters. I was so intrigued. I like that there seems to be a backstory between their relationship, but we're not overloaded with those details. You can feel those tense moments. You can feel them referencing things that have happened, but they don't overload you with that. I thought it was brilliant screenwriting, brilliant relationships. It was so good with the sign language implemented in there. All of that, I will say at the beginning, just to start with, like I started with low expectations and they immediately were surpassed and then some.
Yeah, this movie is, I mean, again, like I said, first of all, incredibly slick production. And this is probably, once again, on me because of skewed, biased American perspective. But this movie looks exactly like you would expect a movie to look like coming out of a Hollywood studio. It is a high-quality, slick film. And what I love about it, first and foremost, is exactly what you were just talking about with the script. The way this movie is written, first of all, a lot of movies try to blend a lot of styles and genres, and they try, and I appreciate their ambition, but they don't ever really make them all work, and every individual part ends up being kind of lesser for it. This movie is a perfect blending of so many elements. It's got really great, but not overbearing action elements. When it does get into the more horror movie elements, it doesn't feel out of place. They transition into it perfectly. Really impressive blend things. The interesting thing when you mentioned the Western element is I never actually saw that particular description of the movie. I saw it as like an action horror, right? But as soon as you said it, yeah, like it's obviously not like an old West Western, but it has those Western film influences the same way a movie like Star Wars has Western influences, and it's just really but the script.
Before we go on to script, I just want to say for like influences it's had, because I saw this movie yesterday and you hadn't seen it until today. I did have time to do a little bit of research. One more influence in there is manga. The guy who wrote and directed this loves manga, and I just love that was part. So it was a supernatural Western, like anime in manga inspired film. So I just had to say, like, that hybrid is so awesome. Cool.
Yeah, and I think you can see that definitely in a lot of the cinematography in this movie, which I want to talk about in a minute as well. But what you were saying right there about the script, this, to me, for my taste, is such a sophisticated piece of screenwriting, because it does what you said. It doesn't spoon feed anything to you, but it gives you everything you need to put all the pieces together without a lot of digging on your own. It's really interesting how I was able to reconstruct everything that this movie was about without like this movie has heavy themes of like child soldiers and that sort of abusive system and in Africa and that sort of thing, but it doesn't ever talk directly about that. It makes visual references to it, and that element is there, but it's not a theme of the film. Or rather, it's not a forward theme of the film. I thought the way the story itself progresses when they make the big reveal that the guy who runs this hotel or
this incredibly generous man,
this is actually the guy who used to run this child soldier group and had severely abused Shaka, and as we slowly piece together what's happening in Chaka's flashbacks, even the simple way when they get ready in the beginning of the movie to get on the boat and go down the river, and the older of the hyenas, and why is his name escaping me right now? I don't remember.
I am awful with names. I only remember Chaka. Sorry.
He blows that dust into Chaka's face to put him to sleep, and then they put Chaka on the boat, and I just immediately say, okay, this guy's got a fear of water. And at that point, I hadn't drawn the connection between his fear of water and that really sort of vague opening scene which is flashback. And of course, they bring all those pieces together. I just thought it was really impressive, sophisticated screenwriting. I never would have guessed that guy was what was, and the way they present it, and you just understand in the moment exactly what's going on. It's not mysterious. It's not dense or hard to deconstruct. Really, really excellent writing. I thought the cast was all incredible. Really excellent performances across the board. When the movie transitions from action into the more horror-oriented side of the story, which is more the back half, those spirit creatures, those things are awesome. One of the best spirit creature designs I've seen in a horror movie in a long time. I can't say enough good things about this movie. I really, really enjoyed it.
So like I said, I did a bunch of research, and I have a whole list of things that I will be digging into now.
Okay.
Because they're things that are in this movie that I had never heard of. I believe it's pronounced Witty. I know it's spelled Bwiti, but it is the discipline that those creatures are, I guess, that they originate from. So I'm going to definitely be doing research on that and that spiritual belief, and checking that out.
The sort of like cultural tradition.
Yeah, kind of. So Yeah, and I haven't done too much, but again, I was reading some interviews with the director because I was so interested in like, where did this come about? And so I will dig into some of the knowledge that I have now because I was doing research on this all day. I was so into this movie. So basically, when he sat down, it was Jean-Luc, oh gosh, what was his last name?
Jean-Luc Herboulat.
Herboulat and Pamela Diop. I am so sorry. I wish there was a better way to understand how to pronounce words visually.
Right.
But when they were creating,
uses it.
That's true. But when they were creating this movie, they basically sat down and they said, "What have we not seen in a movie before?" And then they did it. Great. They transitioned from night to day right when everything starts going to hell because they said, oh, bad things always happen at night. Let's make this during the day. So they make it during the day. And then they went, so there's spirits that you have to be quiet around so they don't hear you. There are spirits that you can't touch, you can't see. How about ones that you can't hear? We haven't seen that before. So then they did that in the movie. They basically just took everything and said, like, we want to make something nobody has seen, a Western supernatural. Let's do it. And I love that.
What I love about that is it's an element of God is in the details, right? Because those are all things that really at the core of this movie are just throwaway surface elements, right? But they add so much freshness regardless of that. Like that simple idea of like, oh, no, the way you protect yourselves from these spirits is you can't hear them. You have to prevent yourself from hearing them. That's such an interesting concept, and it was just such a unique and clever idea that I had never even heard of before, that it adds so much freshness.
Yeah, and then it makes Awa such like an important character.
She was great.
I loved the sign language element immediately because it was like, of course, they speak so many different languages because they travel all over Africa where there are many languages. Of course, why couldn't sign language be one of them? And now they're having this conversation where it's like nobody else at the table knows what they are outright saying to one another, and that was just such a suspenseful moment of are we sure that nobody else can sign here? Is this a secret conversation? The fact that you were spelling this out so much was just like, that was where I really went, this movie is incredible. And then what was my other thing? Oh, just the bookends of this movie being that quote, which I wrote down because I loved it so much.
About the river.
Yep, hang on, because I had to say it verbatim. So it is, revenge is like a river, and our actions are the dugouts guided by the current. We say that revenge is like a river whose bottom is reached only when we drown.
Yeah.
And then the fact that we see that foretold and then it comes true at the very end. It was such a poignant end to this, and it was just that blew me away, that ending. And I can't even put into words really what this movie did to me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and again, that's yet another example of just this combination of so many different ideas and elements, right? It's a revenge story, and it's also, I mentioned that it does such a great job of giving you just enough to understand the depth going on here. There's a moment in this movie that I think... I don't know, maybe a lot of people will catch on to it, or maybe they won't, but it really struck me personally. After they all separate to do their various tasks for the day, and Chaka and is Omar? Not Omar.
Omar is one of them.
Well, Chaka and the guy who runs the hotel.
I believe that's Omar.
They go off to basically... run off some poachers by maybe injuring them, but not severely. They shoot them in the ass with a rifle, apparently.
Like Batman. Yeah. Batman wouldn't kill them either. He'd just shoot them in the ass.
But here's the bit that got me. So they're walking back, and of course later you realize in retrospect that this is the victim with his victimizer having a very personal conversation. And it adds so much more to that scene in retrospect. But they have this moment where they just kind of both understand that they've both been soldiers. And Omar, like they ask about what conflicts they were involved in. And Omar makes a list of conflicts, and then Chaka makes a list of conflicts, and you realize that absolutely none of the conflicts on Omar's list cross over with the ones on Chaka's list. And what hit me about that is that's a lot of fucking conflicts. And it just suddenly hit me. It's like, oh yeah, this is a movie that is in a lot of ways also very much about this dramatically war-torn region. And I think I at least had, like, I've always kind of, I think, peripherally understood, but just something about that moment just really drove home to me how really insanely war-torn this region has been for a long time. And I just can't even begin to imagine just what that would do to an entire culture of people. And I thought that was a great example of what we were talking about, where the script gives you just enough to understand there's such incredible depth here.
Yeah, I would say that with all the care that they took when creating this script, they must have figured out, we want this to be accessible to people who don't understand these other things. And the fact that they did that so well, because I think a lot of people, if they were trying to write a story, it would be hard to say which parts of this story are other people maybe not as familiar with. And how would I get them to understand without overwhelming them with information. And it was just, I'm so impressed that they were able to do that, you know, and really just figure out, like, we need certain information out there, but maybe not everybody is as familiar with this region. I will admit I absolutely am not. I am very bad at understanding, you know, other regions. I'm very bad at it. It's something I'm interested in, but it's not something I'm good at by any means.
Well, and that's also kind of the beauty of movies like this is hopefully to some degree maybe it inspires people to look deeper into those things and learn a little bit more about them in, you know, because again, this movie ultimately it's not about child soldiers and war-torn Africa. It just exists in that context, but it's enough that it gives the movie so much depth.
Yeah. And that was another thing I read in an interview. Like I said, this is what I did all day. I was so fascinated by this. But they said that they, so I have forgotten their name, Pamela Diop was one of the writers and a producer, and they are from Saloum. So they wanted to show how both beautiful and dangerous it is. And that was the quote from them. It's beautiful and dangerous. And they wanted to give it that depth, but also show, like, look at these beautiful, you know, like rivers that we have here in this, like, beautiful wetland. And it just, it perfectly hit that. This is just brilliant writing. And I am very, very excited to see more from them.
Yeah, and that element of trying to show off the beauty of Saloum actually brings me around to the point I wanted to make when you were talking about the manga influence. And I mentioned there's some things in the cinematography here. There's there's two shots in this that I absolutely love and I think are masterpiece level pieces of cinematography. But the one that I feel really drives home that manga influence so much is towards the end of the movie. There's that scene where they're riding the quads down the delta to get to the other place, and there's this very far removed overhead shot where you see the two quads on the ground, but they're very small, almost ant-like, and there's just this surrounding delta, and the camera is moving, but the quads are also moving, and they're moving at different paces, so the quads are moving counter to the frame, and just the way those things moved against each other, and the angle and the removal of the shot, first of all, is beautiful geography. But I thought that shot was fantastic and definitely reminds me of a lot of things that I've seen in like a manga or anime sort of mentality.
I am definitely going to have to watch this movie a second time.
Oh, for sure.
I already knew that
Yeah.
because now that I know what I know, I want to see, those hints, like you said, that conversation that happened earlier.
So wild.
I really want to see a lot of those things. I did watch parts of the ending a second time because I felt like I definitely missed things and all the stuff that went on very quickly. So I watched part of that a second time just to make sure I understood what had happened. But I really enjoy this. I don't have a lot more to say about it except that I will continue doing a lot of research on all sorts of different things because I just have like a list of terms that I want to dig into and learn about now.
And then the one other shot that I did want to mention that I feel like also definitely indicates a certain level of manga and anime influence is actually one that you can see if you haven't even watched the movie. Now, you're not going to understand the full context of this shot until you actually see it in the story, but it's the cover image that they present on the Shudder website of the young boy, young Shaka, which we eventually learn in the ocean, and he's got that handcuffed chain around one hand and this obscenely large firearm in the other, and you can see both the sun and the moon in the sky, and the moon is literally vertical right above the sun, and then it continues a vertical line right down to Chaka in the ocean. The framing of that shot, the construction of it, the content of it, everything about that shot is incredible. And you can get like I said, a capture of the basic image just by looking at the website. But my God, that bit of photography, that whole sequence, the flashback sequence when you see it in full between the opening and closing of this film is just, I mean, it's rough and it definitely indicates some dark things, but it is beautiful work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't say enough good things about Saloum. I love that this movie gave me a bright spot in an otherwise shitty day. I highly recommend you check this one out, and I feel like I need to be paying more attention to African film.
Yes, absolutely. And that was, again, in one of the many interviews I read, he said that he wanted to show what African cinema could be because he knew that the rest of the world didn't know. And we didn't, and I'm glad he showed us.
Well, that's awesome.
I want to see more.
I hope this movie opens up a lot of doors for people who watch it. I hope it opens up a lot of doors for the people who made it. Again, I thought this cast was phenomenal.
Oh my gosh, the main guy.
The way another element of how they give you just enough in the story, the way you understand that these three guys are this is as much of a brotherhood as you're ever gonna see in film, and they sell it completely. If you told me that these were real people in the world who were actually all three brothers, I would believe it. These three guys together were amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. So go check out Saloum, guys. I can't recommend this movie enough. I gave it a 4.5. Michelle gave it a 4.25. That's a 4.375 skull rating, and that's pretty damn good.
Absolutely.
So what else do we need to talk about before we wrap things up, Michelle? T-shirts are on sale.
I was going to say, after all this, talk about what a great movie this is, we want to shill some T-shirts at these people. We're not making a profit off of the T-shirts, so I feel a little less guilty about it. But we do have T-shirts. People have asked us about T-shirts. We are doing an order of T-shirts. Make sure to put in your order of T-shirts by going to the form that we have listed on our Facebook page. If you don't have Facebook, first off, you're probably very young. And hello, what's it like to have hope?
Oh, I think if somebody doesn't have Facebook, it's much more likely that they're very old.
No, gosh, no. Basically, the youngins are only on TikTok and Snapchat now.
Oh, I
it's
see what
ridiculous.
You're saying.
Yeah. Facebook is for us oldies. But yeah, so if you need the link, email us if you don't have Facebook, I guess. Yeah. But also, go to bed. It's late.
Yeah, and here's the thing, guys. I want to make this clear. Even if you're not going to be able to make payment on the shirt, make your reservation for it, because I don't think we've made this quite clear enough. This is a limited run thing. right? We're gonna do these and get them out there to everybody. But that's part of why when we say they're $25, we're not really profiting off of these shirts. Is because this is a very small batch print run. We're not going to get 300 or 400 of these things made and just keep them around. Right? No. So at least get your name on that reservation list. Give us all the details and make sure you get that payment to us by the 16th. And it would mean the world to us that you want to represent Shudder. And we watch Shudder. Represent Shudder too. We do. Shudder follows us on Twitter now.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
Sent that screenshot to so many people.
Yeah.
Hey Shudder, if you're listening,
Shudder
what's up?
follows. We watch Shudder.
Mr. Shudder himself, or Mrs. Shudder, or Miss Shudder.
That's
whoever they are.
I hope they don't
I know
mind.
it was probably them just doing like a social listening
we use a 10-second snippet of their theme music for our theme music.
Although
I gotta be honest with you, I deliberately
made
it 10 seconds because I'm pretty sure 10 seconds is how long of a clip you can use without having to do
Fair
anything
use.
with it. Fair use, yeah. Anyway.
If not, we'll recreate it with kazoos.
Get those t-shirts. And speaking of Twitter, guys, we're on all the social medias, well, most of the social medias. We're on Twitter, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. It's just at We Watch Shudder everywhere.
We're on OnlyFans.
Are we on OnlyFans?
It's just JD sleeping videos. I didn't tell you because it's much better when you don't know than your sleeping is natural.
I mean, I'm not against it, but it's certainly weird.
$5 per month. Listen to JD snore.
Well, people have been interested in Stranger Things. People also are interested in Stranger Things on Netflix. So, I don't know. Maybe they want to watch me sleep.
I do have to say that if people want an OnlyFans of me sleeping, I have sleep disturbances, and I wake up often yelling at things in my room, talking to strange men who aren't there. Last night, there was a very cute, 6-foot-tall Furby-like creature in my room, and I kept going, please go away, please go away. I'm trying to sleep. So maybe people do want to see an OnlyFans of me interacting with the creatures that show up.
Michelle, I think there's only one way to find out for sure.
Only one fan way to find. Anyway, God.
So we've completely gone off the rails on this episode about Saloum. We'll be back next week. Michelle, what's the movie next week?
It is a double feature
of
Speak No
double
Evil
feature!
And Flux Gourmet.
Flux Gourmet, and what's the other one? I talked right over it.
Yeah, Speak No Evil. Shout No Evil when I'm speaking.
Something like that, yeah. So, we'll be back with those. Don't forget that coming up in October, we're going to be digging back into the original and exclusive Shudder archive.
Oh, my God, I'm so excited.
Bringing you a new episode every single day, all month long.
You guys, okay, so first off, a lot of these movies you will have seen because they are some of the best and maybe some of the worst that Shudder has to offer.
Depending on who you ask, yes.
Carefully curated this library, and even if you're not interested in the movies, if you want to see JD and I go head to head and get very argumentative.
When we put this list together, Michelle and I both very deliberately selected films that we knew we really enjoyed, and the other one either we knew for sure hated or knew the other person well enough to know they're gonna hate this, and we have some really fun back and forth.
I have to say I'm very proud of myself and my ability to figure out exactly what kind of movie you don't like and hit that very early in the month. Which,
you did.
You'll have to
really
listen. That's an
art.
keep
an ear out for that as well. Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We'll be back next week. Say good night, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.